As you guys know, one of the main problems with Destiny is how repetitive it is. You play the same missions and strikes over and over again, simply to get better loot. But Destiny isn't the only game that does this. Many other games have you replay content over and over again. However, a lot of these games do it much better. You see, in a game like Mass Effect 3's co-op multiplayer, you basically do the same thing every match. You spawn into a map and fight one of 4 factions in a wave defense style game mode. Sounds like it would get dull pretty fast, right? Nope. Mass Effect 3's co-op multiplayer had the most replay value I've ever seen in a wave defense game mode, and that's because of how many ways you could change things up. There were 2 main ways to vary the experience: your loadout and the enemy that you would face. Each faction had enemies that had special abilities and ways to counter those abilities. This allowed for a lot of pre-game strategy. Let's say you were going up against Cerberus. Everyone knows you're gonna need a way of dealing with those goddamn phantoms. Phantoms were these quick little ninja women with swords that could insta-kill you if they got too close. And if they insta-killed you, you couldn't be revived by a teammate like you normally could. So one approach to beating phantoms was staying far away and sniping them, since they weren't the toughest of enemies. An infiltrator could one-shot a phantom in the head if they were a good shot. But phantoms also had this barrier ability that would block all incoming powers. So one strategy was for a sniper to cloak, fire a power at her so that she uses her barrier, but then when she did that, she would stand still, making for some pretty easy headshots. Another way to deal with phantoms was to stagger them. So if you had something like the Adas or the Acolyte, you could just continuously stagger a phantom until she was dead. Or if you were a Vanguard, you could use a high risk, high reward maneuver. You could use your biotic charge and that would stagger her, and then you would blast her in the face with your shotgun for the easy kill. It would be high risk because you run the risk of charging into her and leaving yourself exposed to another phantom in the area, so you had to be aware of your surroundings. See how much preparation goes into fighting one enemy type from one faction in this game? I'll give another example. Cerberus had an enemy called a Guardian, basically a dude with a riot shield, very similar to a Cabal phalanx, but a lot smaller. So this shield had a small cutout right by the guy's eyes so that he could see through his shield. So if you were a sniper, an easy way of taking these guys out was just shooting straight through the hole and you'd get a headshot and kill him instantly. Or if you were a biotic with a pull ability, you could use pull to rip the shield away from him and then shoot him while he's stunned. Or maybe you were a weapons based class, then you could apply either armor piercing or drill rounds to your ammo and then you'd be able to shoot straight through the shield no problem. Compare that to Destiny, and there's only one way to kill a Cabal phalanx. You shoot him in his arm, stagger him, and then you shoot him in the head. And if the angry modifier is on, have fun shooting his hand until he dies. Offering us complex enemies with special abilities and weaknesses is a great way to increase the replay value of a game, because it makes us strategize and think of how we're gonna face this enemy this time. But the other side of that coin is that you have to offer us different ways of killing these enemies. In Destiny, you can change your class, but that doesn't change up the experience too much, because at the end of the day, you just shoot enemies and use a super once in a while when it comes off of cooldown. Mass Effect was different because your abilities generally had much lower cooldowns unless you were running a heavy weapons build. Another big problem I have with Destiny's PVE is its so-called open world. And the problem is, it's boring. There's nothing fun or exciting to do there. And I know that the new Dreadnought is supposed to be a lot tougher, and I know that some of these bosses have these special mechanics and that looks cool, but I still don't see too much of a sandbox. Honestly, if Destiny's open world was a true sandbox, I'd be so much more positive about this game. Because if there's one thing I bust a nut for, it's sandbox. Games like Shadow of Mordor and Far Cry 4 have excellent sandboxes, unlike Destiny. Let's take Far Cry for example. You could be exploring the world and you could randomly come across an ancient shrine with some chests filled with items and money, and you'll probably find some cool artifact that tells a small story. Or maybe you'll find notes from your father, Mohan Gale, and you could find out more about him. And there's other things too, like the other day I was just walking around when I heard a strange noise, so I went to check it out and I was like, holy shit, it's a tiger fighting a bear, and the tiger won. And then I proceeded to kill the tiger because I got way too close and I pissed Mr. Tiger off. Then I proceeded to loot the skins from the tiger and the bear for some crafting later on. You can't have cool dynamic experiences like this in Destiny's open world. It's the same thing over and over again. The same enemies respawn on the same timers over and over again. The same public events happen over and over again. There's nothing new or fresh or dynamic about Destiny's open worlds right now. And that's just a small part of what you do in Far Cry. In both Far Cry 3 and 4, my favorite thing to do was take over outposts. Outposts are basically enemy camps. Now there's two basic ways of approaching these outposts. loud or quiet. If you go in loud though, someone will most likely trigger the alarm and then you'll have to fight off extra enemy forces. If you manage to take over an enemy outpost without anyone noticing you, you'll be awarded with bonus experience. So every time I approach an outpost, I pull out my camera to spot all of the enemies and then I plan my attack. Do I throw a piece of bait in the middle of the camp and watch as a tiger runs in there and wrecks those Royal Army dirtbags? Or maybe I become one with nature and flank around the enemies, use the tiger as a distraction and catch them by surprise. Or maybe I say fuck it and I charge in alongside the tiger and mow them down before they can even get to the alarm. And if there's an elephant nearby, I can hop on him and then ride him into the camp and then send them flying with the elephant's trunk attack. Or maybe I'll spend a token and call in some of my golden path reinforcements. I could use them like I did the tiger, charge in alongside them or flank the enemy from the back again. Or maybe I'll just offer some sniper support from a distance while they fight on the front lines. Or maybe I'm feeling extra evil, so I call in the golden path reinforcements and then I throw some bait into the mix so that a predator can come in there and cause some chaos between the two armies. Or maybe I'll just fly into the enemy base on some janky ass makeshift helicopter and then wreck the Royal Army. Or maybe I'll go battlefield on them and strap some C4 to a jeep, drive it in there, jump out, and then detonate it for a sweet ass multi-kill, and then spray the rest of them down with some good old AK-47. Or maybe I want to be super stealthy and only use my knife to take down all the guards, so I'll have to hide the bodies so that no one gets suspicious. And I'll keep my suppressed pistol out just in case someone sees me, so I can take them down quietly. Or maybe I'll put a silencer on my sniper and pick them off one by one from a distance before they can spot me. Once again, there are so many ways to accomplish this one task that it makes it seem fresh every time, especially since each outpost is different. Some might have heavy gunners, snipers, there might be some dogs to sniff you out, or a caged animal that you could let loose. All of these things are non-existent in Destiny's open world, but if they did have these things, it could potentially be an amazing game. You know, I wonder if a lot of the people who are in love with Destiny have played games like these. If you have experienced games like Far Cry, Mass Effect, and Shadows of Mordor, I don't see how you could possibly defend the lack of content and the lack of the quality in that content. If Destiny would take a page out of these games' playbooks, it could be something truly special. In addition to doing our Nightfalls, raids, and PvP, we could be exploring open worlds, trying out different strategies for beating enemies. But instead, right now in Destiny, the only strategy that goes into PvE is elemental burns. If there's a burn modifier on a strike, you'll use whatever weapons you have with that element. And if there isn't a burn modifier on, you'll just use whatever element that enemy uses for shields. For example, if you're fighting Cabal, you know you're gonna need solar damage and void damage if you're doing the Nightfall. And that's really it. Other than that, you just run around, shoot at bad guys, and take cover. It's mindless. And that's that shit that I don't like. Well, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed the video and agreed with what I said, don't forget to smash that like button, and if you're not feeling too shy, drop a comment down below and let me know what was your favorite open world sandbox game. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can become a member of the Overman Army group of baps motherfuckers across all of YouTube. That's it for me though, guys. Overman out.